This is a quick video overview of the appendicular skeleton. We're going to start with the pectoral girdle and work our way down the arm. Here's Napoleon posing for you. And we're going to start with the clavicle. We have the sternal end of the clavicle. Remember, there's an S shape to the clavicle and it goes anterior to posterior. And then there's the acromial end, so that's the acromioclavicular joint. And on the underside, the inferior surface, there's the conoid tubercle, and that's the clavicle. Moving on from the clavicle to the scapula, I'm going to look posterior at the posterior aspect of the scapula. We have the medial border, the lateral border, the inferior angle. The spine of the scapula is very obvious. Below the spine of the scapula, inferior to it, is the infraspinous fossa. Superior to it is the supraspinous fossa. The spine continues on to become the acromion, and that's where the clavicle attaches to the scapula at the acromioclavicular joint. We have the coracoid process projecting forward, and then if you look through the ribs there, you can see the subscapular fossa. And on the lateral aspect is the glenoid cavity, where the humerus, head of the humerus, attaches to the scapula. Next is the humerus. We have the big ball at the top. The proximal end is the head of the humerus. You can see the tubercles of the humerus, the greater and lesser tubercles. Between that is the intertubercular sulcus. The intertubercular sulcus. We have the length of the humerus. On the posterior side, posterior aspect, we have the olecranon fossa. That's where the olecranon that you can see right there fits into. And on the anterior surface, we have the trochlea and the capitulum, and we have the medial epicondyle. Is very obvious there. Moving on down the arm, more distally, we have the radius and ulna. On the ulna, we have the coronoid process, which fits into the coronoid fossa, and the trochlear notch fits around the trochlea. And the distal end, we have the styloid process of the ulna. You can see the radial ulnar joint, the distal radial ulnar joint. You can see the proximal radial ulnar joint. Continue around to the posterior aspect of the ulna. We have the olecranon of the ulna. And you can again see the styloid process of the ulna. Continuing on to the thumb side, the lateral side, is the radius. You can see the head of the radius, the tubercle of the radius, that ski slope anterior, and the styloid process of the radius. You can see where the radius articulates with the scaphoid and lunate bones of the wrist. You can see where the head of the radius articulates with the capitulum of the humerus on the proximal end. And you can see the radial ulnar joint there as well. Moving on to the bones of the wrist and hand. So we have the bones of the wrist, which are the carpals. You can see the scaphoid bone, lunate, triquetrum, pisiform, see trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. Hamate has the hook on it. You can see as I go back and forth. We move on to the bones of the hand. We have the metacarpals. Metacarpals 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, numbering starting with the thumb. Then we have the proximal phalanges, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The middle phalanges, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the distal phalanges, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.